Katie, I'm so glad to be having this conversation. And I have to first call out that you are wearing green, and I feel like you are already leaning into this kind of plant zone and natural zone.
Yes.
So you've already inspired me to incorporate more color into my next outfit.
Thank you.
Well, so thinking about your background, you have one of the more interesting marketing backgrounds. You've worked on the PR side at Weber Shandwick. You've worked on kind of the more adventure and experiences side at Living Social, and now at UrbanStems. So I would love to understand, based on all of these different experiences in marketing, what feels new today and what feels like it's different from maybe even 3 years ago?
Yeah, I think the new thing right now is just the ability. At UrbanStems, we are constantly testing our creative all the time and then just constantly iterating. So I think too, in just keeping with the theme of AI, that obviously feels very new in the past year for us, even since like February, I would say. But just thinking through new ideas and new ways in with AI has become a big focus for us at UrbanStems. The other thing too, I think in the past few years is just differentiation. So when we first started at, UrbanStems started about 10 years ago, we were kind of seen as one of the more modern floral gifting companies. Now we're kind of seeing there's a lot of competitors in the space. They're all kind of similar. So this year, we're kind of seeing this as a moment as what makes us different. And so that is why we're looking at AI too, of like, is there something here that we could be tapping into to kind of differentiate us from our competitors that's a little bit more creative too?
And that battle of competitive advantage, every industry is seeing it, every company is struggling with it. For the companies that might be watching, what sort of advice what has been working in your field, and maybe what advice would you give to others who are trying to figure out how to experiment in this space and use that as a competitive advantage?
Definitely. I think for us, the big thing that at least made me tap into AI a bit more, and I thought like there could be something here, was back in February. We got reached out to by the New York Times for a story around Valentine's Day. And it was around how at checkout, we have the option to say, why are you sending? And then, do you need help writing your note to your recipient? Because we find that like people might pick out the perfect gift and then be like, I don't know what to say here. Like how do I make it heartfelt? We're also keeping it to a certain character limit too. So there's some restraints there. So what we started to do was, hey, let us write a note for you. So if you're sending for a birthday, we'll give you 5 ideas for a birthday note. If you're sending for Valentine's Day, we'll give you 5 ideas for Valentine's Day. So the New York Times saw this, we had a conversation, it got us some press. And then in that conversation, I did say, ChatGPT or AI might be something that will look towards doing the notes that way too, of can we have some sort of note generator for our customers? So it really helps them and they can kind of be in control of the note a bit more too. And so that kind of started off this, hey, maybe there's a brand awareness opportunity here, for us to tap into and lean into AI a bit more. Not even like 2 months later, one of our big competitors created a whole AI note generation landing page for Mother's Day. It was very creative, it was very well done, and it got them a ton of press. So I think that kind of kicked it off of like, there is a huge opportunity here. So brand awareness is one of them. It's like what we're thinking through as a company is where are the opportunities there? The one that we're doing constantly now since back in February is just content creation. The big thing being SEO. So we will use AI to help us draft any sort of keyword-rich SEO content. Typically, we're having to outsource that or having to do it in-house. It's now being able to like free up more time for that person who is doing it in-house to think more outside the box, have more creative ideas, and not be so honed in on like the day-to-day SEO tasks. We also are using it to create meta descriptions and then blog content too. So that's been a big thing. And then just overall, we're really leaning into just AI prompts. So we've created an AI prompts library so that we can go in, you like that? We can go in now too and just copy and paste and be like, all right, write me an SEO blurb with this amount of characters about this topic. Like, what are the best roses to send? And then answer these keyword questions. We also too are making sure that in-house we have people who are just signing up for classes, free online classes about SEO and AI, and just starting to kind of immerse themselves into what's possible. And then being able to take that and come back to the table with some other ideas that we might not have even known about yet. So there's been a lot of different ways, and we're seeing some success there too, especially on the blog side as well.
You've shared so much wisdom, and so I'm going to attempt to distill it out. One, it sounds like you are growing the number of use cases that you're working on. Maybe it started with writing these notes and then it's expanded to blogs and other pieces of content. So I love this idea of just start.
That is true. Like just that's what started it, was that first interview with the New York Times. And I was like, oh, they have an interest in this. I think there actually is something here. And then just starting to kind of test it out, and then just seeing what other brands are doing and getting inspiration from there. And then also too, what we found on the SEO side is Google's now started, at least for us and for our brand, leaning into more localized content. So not just saying the best things to do for Mother's Day. It's more so the best 10 things to do for Mother's Day in DC or in our main regions of where we're selling flowers. So how can we kind of take that and use ChatGPT to help us write that localized content too? Because all of a sudden it was like, first now we have to do this nationwide, broad content, but then now we're being asked to localize it more too. So we're almost doubling the amount of content that we need. So that was another place too, where it's like, all right, well, that actually is possible if we lean on ChatGPT. And then the other way too, on the content side that we've seen some success is just like, when I say leaning into it, like being very transparent with our customers. So we've had a couple blog posts where it's, if ChatGPT wrote your notes to somebody for their birthday. And so then, and we just say, hey, we asked, what would you write, and give us 10 ideas for a birth and different tones. And then we just took that and made that a blog post. That's now in like our top 20 organic blog posts. So there is, I think, just like the interest in ChatGPT. And so just trying to kind of find those different ways in and just constantly testing new things. Because honestly, we don't know what's going to work. So it is kind of just diving in head first and seeing what resonates.
Something that has felt really like a big theme of today in the space of e-commerce is that you all have so much history of constantly testing. And it's not just A/B, it's A/B times 1,000, where you're used to figuring out what does this look like at scale. And so I love that e-commerce is influencing even other industries about how they might be thinking about testing.
Exactly.
And that transparency piece is so fantastic as well.
Yeah. And I think too, what we're trying to do is, even when I say we're writing blog posts and we're using AI, we might also say, like, we found it still needs a human touch. Like what it's generating back, it still might not be quite on tone or might not actually be 100% correct. So I think still having that human touch and then still having an expert. So what we've started to do is build our content strategy of, all right, once a week, we'll have an AI dedicated post. We will have an expert related post. And then we can kind of start to see, is the AI content doing better or is the more expert related content? Because Google is saying it's going to value expert opinion and, opinions that aren't out there yet. So seeing kind of, and that's something that we're testing into too, to see, does AI, is it really working, or do we start to really rely more on the experts in the field?
Have you gotten answers on that yet?
So not much on the localized content. We saw that was working. But there has been some posts for our AI related content that is still ranking really well for us, which is great in a way because it's not as heavy of a lift. But I think for us to still be seen as a thought leader, and when I said going back to like differentiation, we still want customers to be coming to site and saying, UrbanStems knows about flowers. They are the experts in the field. So I think it will be, this continuation of testing, but then also kind of still making sure, whether it's expert in the field on our blog or maybe it's just in our social content, but still having that human element is going to be very important.
I would love to hear, you have such a fascinating personal background as copywriter turned kind of full content director. And so you've been in that IC world, and then you've been in this visionary leader world. I think one question that I get a lot that I would love if you could answer is, what does that day-to-day now look like? And so you've already kind of teed this up where maybe the productivity of that individual person has changed a bit. And now instead of writing one article, they're editing 50. But I would love to just hear, maybe in the last couple of years, like literally, what is the day-to-day of this person? And what are they creating, and how is it different today than it was a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I think one is being like the overall content strategy. So it is taking a step back and saying, like, how are we going to implement AI? Like, how heavily do we want to do it? So for us, it was, working with our in-house team to say, all right, we're going to actually use this mostly for SEO, because SEO is something that we feel like it doesn't need our brand voice. It doesn't really need that tone. But then when it comes to our product descriptions, I've heard that kind of be used around, today, of using AI to write product descriptions. It's working with your team to decide, is that something that you want to do, or is that something that you feel strongly about your brand voice and that should be taken in-house by a human? So I think it's first having those conversations of, where do you think AI should go for your brand? And like, what do you want to focus on? For us, like, we really, really value our brand voice, and we want to make sure that's coming through. So we kind of decided the places where, it's very important to us, that's still going to have the human touch. But I think too, there is always this like scare of like, oh, well, AI is writing all your content, then what are the copywriters doing? But I think it's more so it's freeing up. I always look at it as like, you're using AI almost like an intern, where it's like you're giving it the bare minimum, and then you should be taking that and iterating on it and making it better. And I think too, it just, if you're looking at it that way, it's freeing up time to be more creative too. So more ideas. We've started to use it just for campaign ideas, where just the other day I went in and said, give me 10 ideas to get men to pre-order early for Valentine's Day with a humorous tone to it. 8 of them weren't great. Okay. 2 of them were pretty good. And so then it's a jumping off point, right? So then it's not, all right, we're going to take these 2 ideas and do them. It's more so now on our content team to take those 2 and iterate off them and say, is there something here? And they can kind of start to build off of that. So I think overall, it just means they're not stuck down in the weeds so much. Like I said, like the intern level role of AI, and then they're allowed to kind of think bigger picture too, and kind of help build a strategy and work on campaigns, and that they're not doing the day-to-day like SEO work. So it's scary, but I feel like we've seen a lot of value in kind of like, all right, well, AI can do this, but you can do this, and then we can start to think bigger picture too.
And so it sounds like there's, again, a pre-step, and this theme has actually come up in the last couple of conversations, where there's always a step, at least one step, before you even start a single AI thing. And it sounds like in the case of UrbanStems, you guys have really said, hey, for trust, for authenticity, for a variety of things, our usage policy, we're going to start with non-brand voice, specific copywriting. And then you might still evolve, but at the very least, that conversation that you guys had established those usage policies.
Yeah, and maybe our prompts need to get better too. Like that's the thing where we've found that we've tried it with product descriptions and it's just not hitting. But that could be human error of like, all right, we need to start to really kind of iterate on this and get it to write content that's within our brand voice. But for right now, for the time being, we've decided internally that is not how we're going to use it. We're going to use it in different ways. I think the other thing too is we've just been, when I say like jumping in, like just constantly like experimenting with AI of like different use cases. So we've been now using in the past month text to image AI of like, design me a red and white peony bouquet in a glass vase. So giving it all these parameters, and what it generated was something very on brand for us. The flowers looked very real. And so what we were starting to do is have it generate different ideas for bouquets as we go into Mother's Day of, hey, give me 10 different yellow bouquets for Mother's Day that somebody might send. And we just keep going off of that. From there, what we're going to start doing is surveying customers. So before we even actually design our product, put it into production, place all the POs, we'll start to have some learnings too of what are you more likely to send? What are you leaning towards? What colors? So trying to get some data that way too through text to image. So that's been a new one that we're experimenting with. And like I said too, from a brand awareness opportunity, we've been pitching that with our PR team of like, hey, we're using text to image, and that's like pretty different in the floral space. And we're going to start getting insights from our customers around that. So it all goes back to the brand awareness of like, how are we continuing to differentiate ourselves as we're using AI?
I mean, it's pretty different in most spaces. Like,
yes.
There are not that many brands that are using AI for product development.
Right.
There's some where they, look at trouble tickets and product reviews and help to figure out maybe how to map out the next couple of features. But that use case that you just shared is still rare, early.
And for us too, like, it's still like, you'll zoom in and you'll be like, is that a flower? Like, is that an actual flower? I
Or
can't
a
tell.
blurry
Yeah,
yellow.
yeah, interesting. But I think
But
too,
it's
like,
giving you the starting point.
exactly. And it's similar to how like our content team is using it for campaign ideas, where it's like, it's a starting point.
Yeah.
This is how our team is now using it on the merchandising side of like, oh, I never thought of pairing this with this. Like, it's a starting point. And so we can kind of build and evolve from there.
I think one thing that you're bringing up in this overarching way is like, at a certain point in a product development life cycle or in a marketing development life cycle, there is a first dollar spent, and then there's a certain amount of sunk cost by the time you actually purchase these tools or manufacture some product or buy a certain vase.
Yep.
And what you're kind of saying is, hey, the combination of our Epic team and the combination of generative AI and research and talking with our customers and all these other components that are not AI specific, but there's all of these things that we can do where before we've even spent $1, we're already more ahead than we would have been a couple years ago.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And like, we have been in that position where we will place those POs. We will say, let's shoot this product. We have to schedule the whole product shoot. Let's edit it. Let's, there's a lot to going into actually launching a product. I'm sure everyone knows. So how can we kind of go in knowing we think this product's going to do really well? And granted, we are looking at data, but when it comes to new designs and new offerings, sometimes we don't know, like, this is something completely different. Do you think people will react to it well? So yes, so if we can start to do that before anything is actually, any of the hard work is actually done, then that's incredibly valuable.
I love that. You guys experiment so much, and you've been in this space for longer than most. I would love to hear maybe what's not working, or maybe something that surprised you that, now of course you've solved, but in that moment, what felt like a new learning?
Yeah, I think for us, so we really tout ourselves on our customer care team. So we have this 100% happiness guaranteed. If you're not happy for whatever reason, you can reach out to us and you will be talking to a human at some point. So one thing we are, there's been a lot of talk of, can we use AI for customer support? Same thing of like what we set those parameters like earlier, where we were saying like we only use it for XYZ. We are only using AI for the initial conversation or the initial, like, how do we tag this issue that a customer is
just
having,
to route it.
just to help with like customer care specialists. So when they're going in to talk to the actual customer, they know, okay, this person says their flowers came wilted or there was a broken vase. All right, I'm going in and already kind of, and this customer wants a full refund or whatever it may be. Then we kind of know, all right, this is how we jump into that. So I think too, what we found is that's starting to work, but we knew like, if we just do complete AI with the customer, that's not going to work. We're not going to do that. So that was the one thing that we kind of all aligned on and felt confident. And so we are seeing success in just the AI care side of things, but we still want that human touch. But in terms of what's not working, I mean, honestly, like we just keep diving in head first. It could be the text to image. Like, we still don't know. Like, maybe customers will be like, these don't look real. I don't even trust. And I think we might, when I was saying transparency, we might even, when we do the survey, say, we used AI to create these bouquets. Which one are you gravitating towards? And see, and we could A/B test that too. Like, should we be transparent? Should we not? And see if customers think they're real bouquets. But yeah, it's all still kind of being figured out. But the nice thing is too, I mean, e-commerce is so evolving and fast, as is AI. So to me, if we do find something doesn't work, it's not the end of the world. I think, as long as you're being smart about it and setting these internal parameters of how you're going to use it, you can move on to the next thing. So, and the last thing we've started to kind of experiment with too is AI for horoscopes. So our customers, the number one reason people send, Cancer. The number one reason people send with us is birthdays. So how do we kind of like iterate on that? And we also found that people like when we send emails around horoscopes and why you should send to this person, what it means. So kind of like the frou-frouiness of it all. So we were like, how can we use AI to work with that? So one thing we've been thinking about is, can we have an AI horoscope generator? So you would say, I'm sending to this person, this is their birthday, give me a horoscope, and then we print that on the note card. So just trying, again, like brand awareness moments. We don't know if that's going to work. So it's also kind of weighing like, is this worth the lift? That one's like a heavier lift because it requires some tech work and then some ops work too, because it had to print the note card. But it's just all ideas that we're kind of just brainstorming with and then seeing kind of what works.
This has been such a rich conversation, Katie.
Good.
You've shared so many interesting pieces. I'm going to attempt to reshare some of these, but the importance of experimentation, how you can use AI to kind of do some of that pre-work before you spend a single dollar on manufacturing or printing out a note card. The idea that maybe you come up with a usage policy before you even start into AI, and maybe that's risk mitigation, but maybe that's also bringing everyone at your company together and saying, hey, let's figure out AI literacy together and move forward into the space. So thank you so much for sharing this insight. I feel like you have educated so many people on just how you're doing it, and I'm really excited to hear how it goes.
Oh, good. Well, thank you very much.
Yep.